Okay, 130. Tellurion image 130. Gonna jump onto Instagram Live, and we're now live. All right. So, a good place to start, as usual. For anyone who was there last time um, and watched, this was the thumbnail that I started with the last time, and it is borderline unrecognizable, almost impossible to tell what's actually going on. So, as usual, our process, we've got started to do some drawing over top of it and outlined a bit of a, well, here, let's move this text a little bit just so it's not so obnoxious. But welcome, Instagram folks. You're welcome to join us on Twitch. The address is written up here, Matt Rhodes Art. So jump on. And then we've got a Discord too if you want to actually join with audio. So, like I was saying, so we went from thumbnail to kind of a rough blocked in shape. This kind of hopefully makes it a little more clear what that thumbnail was actually trying to do. Thanks, Voligucci on Instagram. So here we kind of flip back and forth. It always helps to see them when you flip back and forth, just to see what's going on. So as you can see, the thumbnail is super gestural. It's just very much the rudimentary, almost just nothing much more than line of action. So I got to this point, wasn't totally thrilled with it. It was pretty awkward, and so what I wanted to do was go in and redraw. What I was trying to do here was start getting that line of action, and the line of action, Samantha Youssef says it really well. It's kind of where, think about it from the collarbone to wherever the weight of the figure hits the ground. So in sitting characters, I've just been doing the line of action down to where the ass meets the ground. And so both of the figures then had these lines of action meant to be pretty relaxed. And hey, everybody who's waving. Hey, Corey. So it got the line of action and then just started building up these broad skeletons. Thanks, Corey, on Instagram. Says, you the man. You demand. So here we got a line of action. Then I built up a very rudimentary skeleton. It's basically just like a wireframe skeleton. For those just joining on Instagram, like I'm saying, jump on Twitch because these Instagram things don't last long. So if you want to join me, please feel free to jump in. So I was happy eventually with this pose, and I got kind of the skeleton working the way I liked it. And so I took it to pencils. So here we have the pencils for the next one. I'll pull back a little bit so you can see it a bit better. So I was pretty happy with this. Took that to the inking stage. Now for everyone who's jumped into the Instagram, you're going to get the nice reveal of the next one. Took it to the inking stage and made a few changes. I don't have my pre-baked layers that are separated from lines and diffuse color and shading and atmosphere and all that stuff. So I'm just going to jump right to the final, and we'll see if we can find the next images. So this is the next shot. I would turn the phone sideways. Oh, I could, but then that's probably going to look really awkward and frustrating for people. So we've got, let's see. All right. Hey, on Twitch chat. Woot, an evening with Matt Rhodes himself. Thanks for jumping in. So one of the big changes you can see between the sketch or between the final and the pencil is the position of this arm here. Jeff Simpson, hey, welcome. So if looking at this position, I wasn't actually thrilled with it. I wanted to add a little bit more going on and change it a little bit. So I'll just flip back and forth and look like you can see what's going on here. So change the angle. My man. Hey, Jeff. So being able to... Memesers in the chat on Twitch. Welcome. Please look up in the chat. There's a Discord link. So if you want to actually join in on Twitch and actually get the audio, we can actually just talk, which I find is a lot more natural. And for anyone who's on Instagram and joining and they haven't heard, I don't like to talk too specifically about content, like what's actually going on in each image. So I'll just refer to things in very general, very general terms. So you can see the angle changed here, and he is holding. I mean, it's easy. Okay, it's fine enough to say paper. Fine. Oh, thank you, Neblin, for posting the Discord link.
Hello?
Hey, welcome.
Hi. Oh, hey. My mic doesn't always work, so
Okay, well, yeah, that's
testing. Sorry.
okay. And for those on Instagram, um, while I'm doing the live thing, if it sounds like I'm having one-sided conversations, it's just people who have joined the Discord and are following along on Twitch. So you're free to
Basically,
join in
we
too.
are Instagram ghosts.
Exactly, exactly. Instagram ghosts. So once again, Twitch link. Just look that up on Twitch, and you'll be able to find us. So a few simple things here. Yeah, we've got it. I've got it. I wrestled with it to the point where I'm actually happy with it. But I can show you one of the things that I did keep was my first pass on the final color, and I think that's something that I can show how things go. So brought it up to the point where I had the here. Let me turn on and off some of the atmosphere. So we have some of these hot lights. So without it, it's effectively that's what's going on the lighting layer. Um, Oh well, thanks, miscellaneous on scene, misc on scene in Instagram. So building up some of the atmosphere, trying to think about how it's gonna affect the thing. On Instagram's just gonna freak out because the iPhone camera is trying to catch up with all this lighting changes. It thinks I'm walking inside and outside. Um, but what I'm really trying to do with these primarily is like, well, it's great to add atmosphere and all that. What I'm really trying to do is separate the layers to strengthen their silhouette so that it pretty much just increases readability. And so my first pass at this, see you, Corey. Thanks for jumping in. I'll put these up on YouTube too. So uh, yeah, you can follow along like that if you want. So I'm just going to flip back and forth between my first pass and my current pass. And so maybe one of the things that you can see is that by trying to add some light in between the two figures, that was really trying to make sure that the silhouette read on her, because here without that inner light, it it ends up kind of you lose it a little bit, and that was kind of the primary reason for shifting the light like this. And then it gave me a few extra little side benefits, and I just enjoyed it. So, and then you can see too, I have my color grading set here. If you look at, oh, we got a first time Twitch viewer in Lursal, watching the YouTube videos. Awesome. Well, glad to have you in. The Discord link's just right there if you want to jump in audio as well. Although I know some people are shy. Hey, Bad Bucket. Awesome. I'm sorry if I'm missing like a ton of waves and things like that in Instagram. I still learning how to manage all this stuff. It's kind of crazy. But I'm just going to turn my color grading layer on and off. So this would be this without it. This is the natural light as it stands, and then with color enhancements turned on. So there's a little bit going on there. Well, thanks, Renzo. So a little bit going on beyond saturation. A little bit of curve adjustment. What I can do here is kind of show. I've got inside. This is the color grading section. Let's see if we can actually. In Twitch, you can see the layers, but here, so I have hue and saturation. But then these three layers are doing different things in the curves, and so I'm increasing the blue in the shadows, and I'm increasing the red in the highlights and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really what the color grading's doing until we get to the final.
So,
yeah, question in Discord?
One thing that I really like about your work, and it's something that I personally kind of struggle with, is how well you control the temperature of your light. Uh, I, I just, it's something I really admire about your work is how, how well you do that.
Oh, thank you.
Do you, I'm trying to come up with an articulate way of wording it, but basically,
Turning it into a question.
Yeah, what sorts of, what's your thought process when you're working with the temperature of your light?
Okay, a question in Discord, and I'll repeat it for Instagram for the people who are joining there. The question in, and let me correct me if I got it, if I get it correct or incorrect, is how do I think about the color temperature in my lighting?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay.
Like I feel like I'm decent at managing values
Okay.
when I paint, but sometimes I struggle with creating contrast with like warm light, cool shadows, or
Mm-hmm.
cool shadow. Sometimes it's just hard to identify.
Sure, sure. Okay, well, when it comes to the color temperature and the light, a lot of what I'm trying to do here is really just thinking about, um, with everything, story first. So a major element is trying to say what is the mood, what is the mood in the scene, and just trying to match the colors to that in a very broad color
Hmm.
psychology sense.
Yeah.
So in this case, like the very warm lights, very like warms and cool contrast. There definitely I'm going for a certain appeal and a sense of peace and that kind of thing. And
I
so,
like how
sorry, what was
I
that?
like I like how on her face how you have just the little cut of light because I I think it's kind of a nice way of like communicating, almost having an epiphany, but without saying like she's suddenly looking at him different.
Right. Okay. So yeah, for Instagram, the question in the Discord was, or the comment was liking the cut of light on the face here. Um, well, and that's one of the things that I've loosened up over a lot over the years. I think is overdoing it as well. So that's one of the things that I've been really trying to do is put in light where I think it's really necessary, but not try to overwork it. And so I it's really hard when you start going in and doing the highlights, or just doing the light and shadows, just to not go crazy, because it can tend to, it's a really exciting moment in the painting. But in this case too, part of it is I don't thoroughly plan my lighting. I have a broad idea of what I'd like, um,
Mhm.
and I kind of like to explore it and kind of let it unfold as the image goes along, so that I'm a little bit surprised too. But in this case, having the light come in from the top right, and having the tree overhead, I knew I was going to try to cut light out a little bit. But in
Yeah.
this case too, part of it is I don't thoroughly. Oh, I'm getting audio from somebody. All right. And a question from Instagram. Any recommendations on using curves for lighting and color? I've always used levels. Yes, I use curves. Shout out to Justin Cherry, who used to go as Nivbed on the forums back in the day, because he set me onto onto curve adjustment for editing my colors, and honestly, I've never looked back. So, for example, let's see in the color grading layer. So again, this is sort of the default. This is what the true lighting is. And again, I like to say it's almost like if you just had a disposable camera on set and you just took a shot. This would probably be what you get. And then this is the more controlled version. But if I turn a few of these off and just go for one. So let's see if Instagram will freak out or not. So if I switch back and forth between my first pass, this is really just bumping up the blues and the shadows and the reds in the lights. And so if you look at my curve layer, and I'm sorry, I didn't set up an OBS to look at this, so only Instagram is really going to see this. But you can see the red line here is the red layer, and the blue line here is the blue layer. And so what I've done is I've bumped up the blues in the darker areas, and I've kind of pulled it all down in the highlights. And then the red is a little similar, where I've pushed reds up in the highlights and pulled it down um, in there. And so what that ends up doing is it gives me, again, I'll flip back and forth between them if my lens will correct. So it's pretty subtle, but then I've got like a darkening curve, and I've got another pass on it that lightens it up more consistently, and then some saturation. So that is that. At this point, thank you for joining me, Instagram folks. I'm going to stop the live feed. If you would like to continue, go to Twitch at Matt Rhodes Art and follow along. And then I'm just going to really dive in to the next one, which I will give you a little preview. Woo! It's no further along than that. So here's the thumbnail for the next shot, and if you can figure out what that is, then 50 points, I guess. But yeah, so thanks for jumping in on the live chat. I'm going to shut it down, but yeah, like I said, please feel free to join in Twitch. So I will see you guys later. Oh, and this will also be uploaded to YouTube probably tomorrow. So I'll see you then.
it is definitely something.
It is something. Exactly. All right.
I see two people with lances or swords back
Oh,
there.
pause. Yeah,
Something tells me action.
that's not a bad guess. I'll save that.
In the last stream, you were talking about how you like if you trace over a sketch directly, like it kind of like gives it like a slow death.
Yeah, right.
Well, I guess that you can't really paint directly over any of these because they're so like gestural and nondescript.
Yeah, well, you mean the thumbnails?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's really just trying to get really the line of action or the performance out of it, and just act as a very, very broad and a thick composition guide. It's because most of what's taking place in the thumbnail is the line of action and the composition, and then beyond that, I can kind of refigure it, but it just sort of keeps me within the bounds.
Yeah.
So I can redraw the figure in a new pose, but as long as I'm generally respecting the general thrust of the thumbnail, I know I'm probably going to be okay.
All right.
I've got a question in chat from Nord Ronak. Says, weird question, but do I do commissions? No, not at the moment. Commissions are always cool, but no. Since starting Tellurion, I haven't been taking them on. I've been too consumed. In fact, I was partly planning, just because I was up for the stream tonight, but I've actually sprained my ankle, so this is a little sharing session. I'm actually sitting at my desk and I've got crutches, and my foot's all wrapped up and resting on a pillow. So I'm pretty, yeah. So I was thinking, okay, well, do I still want to do it tonight? And I was partially thinking it might be fun just to do something super pandering and ridiculous, like, I don't know. Just imagine, just almost as a joke, just imagine like the most pandering possible piece of art I could make for this, like a stormtrooper mermaid or something like that. But every time I consider stuff like that, I just come right back and just think, no, I know what's next. I got to do it.
Well, at least consistency finds you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It means you got your priorities straight.
I appreciate that. It was kind of fun too. Had to remember how to go downstairs in crutches. Because you really have to nail the order on steps, otherwise that's going to go super bad. All right, so I'm just broadening. Last time I realized I was talking. It was fun. It's good to talk, and I want you to throw questions out. But also, please, ask questions. What I'm going to try to do is also talk a little bit more about what I'm doing as I'm going along, because I think last time I just totally zoned into conversation about Star Wars and Infinity War and all that stuff, and it's too easy. So it's not like that's forbidden. I'm just going to make the attempt to talk more about this. And Dry White Snowflake says, it is mermaid after all. Well, exactly. I mean, I could do like a mermaid stormtrooper and mixed with what would make it even more pandering, like Zelda or something like that. Okay. Star Wars and Infinity War, how'd that go? It was fun. It was fun. And that one's up on YouTube, actually. That's on my YouTube channel. If you want to go listen to artists while they paint, just geeking out and talking about story and what's done right, what's done wrong. Because obviously we all know how to do it right. Larissa says 31 days, 31 drawings. I struggle with that. Yeah. Oh man, it's not easy. Okay, no, I'm just remembering now. It's funny, I didn't realize until this point, but I need to actually change up this pose a bit.
Well, I guess this is a good stage to realize that.
It is. Yeah.
There are worse. There are worse points.
It really is. Well, and I'm gonna do something. Let's see here. duh, 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 duh. I'm gonna change something. But first I need to change this. So bear with me here. I'm going to change. Okay. And now, transition. Woo! Okay, cool. We've transitioned. I'm just going to open something up. Just that I don't want anybody to see. Don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. This should actually just be that Wizard of Oz curtain. That would be kind of fun.
Would be hilarious.
So,
Well,
Renaming some of it. Oh, sorry, go.
While there's an intermission,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I know that lots of people have asked you this, but
Mm-hmm.
I know that I would be really interested in buying a physical copy of
Right.
are there plans for that?
There are well, plans is maybe too strong of a word.
Ideas?
Yeah, it's definitely something I would love to do. And I kind of feel like this project wouldn't be complete unless it reached print. So right now, I'm still far enough away that I'm really just exploring options and investigating. There's all sorts of possibilities. I won't say who they were, but I have I've been contacted by small and large, a couple different publishers. Some like one small, one large.
Was that just out of the blue, or did you reach out to them first?
That was actually, honestly, that was kind of out of the blue, which is an encouraging sign. It means something is sort of going right.
Yeah.
So actually, just real quick context here. I'm just pulling up two thumbnails and I'm going to combine them. So I've just labeled them 13 and 14 in pencil here. I'm going to combine them, and what I want is the arm reaching out gesture in 14. So I'm going to do that, which will actually be in image 131. So I'm just not even going to mention numbers. Okay. But yeah, so back to I would like to publish. And whether that is actually just going through an official publisher or doing a Kickstarter or doing Amazon publishing, I don't know. At this point, it's just worth thinking about.
Hi.
Hey.
First time watching and actually joining the chat.
Oh, welcome.
A big fan of you and your brother. So.
Oh, thank you.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm a 3D artist.
Okay.
And how much do you use any 3D in your work at all, or is, because I know some concept artists use 3D work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, do you use some of it just for reference, or?
No, that's a great question.
Or do you? Yeah.
Yeah, and the answer is
Yes.
definitely. I definitely do. I have tried to learn some of the more advanced software many times, and it is the poor people who have volunteered to help walk me through that. Yeah, it was pretty rough. So the most I really use is SketchUp. Google SketchUp, free program that just lets you do some really broad 3D models and things like that. But what I find it really helps with is, especially in the more complicated environments, when it's still good to practice your perspective every now and then, but it just really saves time. Like, and I pulled up this image on purpose. This is one of the last image, and in my sketch layer, you should be able to see pretty clearly that, this is kind of the pencil layer. Just the 3D models that are forming the foundation in the background. Just because this would be a nightmare of ellipses otherwise, and going through all of the math and the legwork to get to that would just be like possible, but then this would never come out. So yeah, it's definitely something that I use a great deal.
Awesome.
I guess it would be really difficult to calculate the perspective of that at like that eighth of an ellipse that you can see.
Exactly. Yeah. Leah,
sure.
Leah Smith Art in chat says, "I wonder. You're wondering if I ever get neck shoulder issues from being at a computer so much. Do art full time. Have a really diligent. I don't. But I'm also really particular about. Well, not really particular. Like right now, I've got a kind of a pillow shoved in my lower back, and I try to keep my posture as solid as I can. For the longest time at BioWare, we had a stickler. Basically, he was our office manager, but he also took it upon himself to be the ergonomic marshal. And so he would if come around and be like, what are you doing? And he would try to get us the right equipment or kind of slap our knuckles if we were doing things incorrectly. Junk Spur says, "Is it easy to learn SketchUp?" Yes. Well, like for example, one of the things I don't have at home, but I would like to get at a certain point is arms for the Cintiq. So there's this pretty simple mechanical arm that drills into the desk, and then it puts it on kind of a little gimbal. So you can sit up straight and you can pull it up to your chest. You can put it down low, or you can kind of sit however you need. Right now, my setup, and actually here I'll do it in the chat. I have a thing for collecting encyclopedias, but they also happen to be really handy. Let's see here. So I have my thing set up on my Cintiq set up on an encyclopedia. Let's see, is that actually showing up? Oh, it is. All right, there we go. So
snap.
So it's raised a little bit. I knew I wanted it raised up. And then, just because I love to show off home kits, super high tech. And actually, wait, let me just say, I'm gonna just botch my camera. But my monitor here, my other tablet here, is sitting on top of a stack of encyclopedias just to get it up to the right height. And then I have my Duplo phone stand, repurposing all the Duplo that my kids don't play with as much anymore.
I might steal that idea.
That is ultra DIY.
Oh yeah. This is like, by whatever means necessary.
Probably get a little piece of cardboard or Tupperware and just plaster on top of it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. There's Sai says hi. Hi. And Matt. Okay. Sir, this is bad. It's like internet names need like pronunciation guides built in. Magodo Pinball. Magodo Pin. Okay. Well, hi. That is a pro setup that rivals all others. Well, thank you. Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, just trying to emulate some of the stuff that I kind of have at the office a little bit. Which, if I was allowed to stream from there, I would show you. But, well, I don't know what the rules are. I'd have to find out. I think that it needs to be in a special place.
That would be kind of cool, though.
Yeah. Quick peek at what BioWare does daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's maybe a tangent. You and brother both work in the same studio.
Not anymore.
Is it weird?
We did.
Not anymore? Okay.
Yeah. We worked together on Dragon Age Inquisition.
Okay.
Oh, I'm getting some other talk. Oh, we're hearing someone's audio. Sorry. Sorry, you had a follow-up to that?
Yeah, I mean, that question, was it weird working with family members, or was it like, oh, there's my brother, I could beat him up whenever?
Well, we did everything we could to make sure it wasn't weird. We did a like for example, I was the lead concept art, so I was the head of that team. But when it came to so he was on my team, but when it came to any of the more official, reviews or conversations like that, that would just be handled directly through my art director, just to make sure that we had a nice separation. We get along. It's great, but just to keep things healthy and fresh, and everyone kind of agreed that was probably the best way to go. But no, I look. He's my little brother, but I look up to him a lot artistically. He's just it was tremendous to have the chance, even for a little while, to work with him.
That's cool.
BioWare needs to give me a think tank room where I can broadcast when I want. Good idea. And am I still at BioWare these days? Yes, I am. From One Big Sandwich. And was did I just cut off a question in Discord?
So what's the barn owl joke? Like the needs more barn owl. Like in one of the R&D fantasy videos, like there was like it's like a classic illustrated joke or something.
Oh, I think if I'm recalling correctly, I think that was just the idea of obscurity. It's, like a barn owl is pretty random. And it's just the idea of, these inside jokes that build up, and shorthand. So I don't think there's anything specifically about barn owls, just that it was
right.
Like, what's something kind of random and funny that would.
It's also that you need to like put into serious consideration to, like, if you're an aspiring concept artist, it's like first thing you learn, barn owl anatomy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know why they're talking about this, but I guess I got to learn it. Have I ever gotten stuck with designing a character that was way too specific, or any character for that matter? If so, how did I work around the artist block? Okay, here is a inside baseball. I feel like this is a good case study, because this one I can use for real. A character that is way too specific. On Dragon Age Inquisition, within the character roster of the followers, I think pretty much every character, with a couple exceptions, was original. They were new. But there was one for sure that was not, and that was the character of Cole. Now, Cole had been the protagonist of a novel written by Dave Gator. Dave Gator was the lead writer on Inquisition, and so when trying to design all of the other characters, easy peasy. Well, okay, relatively. I mean, there's still a lot of hard work and conversation and sweat, but it was a relatively seamless process. Whereas Cole was precious. Cole was one of those characters where too much had already been established, and if we didn't establish it right, it was a difficult thing. So we found that was a huge challenge, where we're trying to portray this character in all of their nuance and detail and all that sort of stuff, but at the same time make something that is very compelling. In a lot of ways, the way I like to put it is, the writers, when they're writing these characters, they're going to write a good book, and we have to try to design a cover that actually makes people want to read that book. And in the case of Cole, we started to get, like, the description of who the character was created one design, and who Dave knew that character to be created another design. And so there were that was one of the longest characters that we've ever kind of worked through in terms of just getting agreement on, and we never actually did. I think, at a certain point we both just had to live with what we had come to. And yeah, so it can definitely be a challenge. And so that really helped us learn that the best possible scenario is we develop the characters in tandem. That, a lead writer, a writer is responsible for a character, and the artists work with them and develop things, and we figure stuff out together, and the visuals kind of help to become a part of that. So it's been it's actually been good. I am when I look back on these videos in the future, if they're still on YouTube, right now I am in the midst of that process. I've mentioned this in previous streams. I'm kind of in the middle of that, and it's been going great, kind of almost freaky great. But I think it's partly just, you know, the group I'm working with is really, they're having a great time, and it shows, and they're really open to. I think both teams are now, they understand the process better, so they're a lot more open to what the other side can offer. How much do game character writers get to interact with designers? Is there a lot of back and forth, or is it primarily top-down instruction? We really, yeah, okay. So I answered the question. So it's totally as much collaboration and cooperation as we possibly can get. So here you're watching. This is the struggle. This process is trying to get these poses to read. It's like trying to do storytelling through body language. And it just takes a lot of back and forth and fidgeting and starting over.
Have you ever caught yourself in that position that you're trying to draw? Like, I make weird faces when I'm trying to draw a particular face.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. If I was drawing more faces in this image, you'd see me like trying to. I do it all the time. I don't know anybody who doesn't, actually. I don't know any artist who can just be drawing a really like potent expression moment and not just be like just looking like a total goofball.
Yeah, at one point I was drawing a character that was angry because he was in combat, and someone asked me, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I'm drawing somebody who looks angry." It just
Exactly.
comes out.
Yeah.
So I'm in the last video you're talking about like cutting out that thing that like taking away from your drawing time.
Yeah.
But in your ACAD talk you referred to like not getting oversaturated. So is there a balance to be struck between things that like, or is like yeah.
There you go. That's the secret to coming across as wise, is say two conflicting things very seriously and slowly. No, it really is, to be as cliche as possible. It's the balance. It's trying to find that balance, because I think there's a difference between sacrificing something that is clearly robbing you of drawing time, and then making sure that, because in some cases, like browsing ArtStation could be that thing, you know, going and doing research, you know, it could be like that whole idea of like, okay, I'm going to clean my house. I'm just gonna straighten this here. And well, first I should cook some food, and I'm supposed to clean the living room, but I'm going to clean my bedroom a little bit first. Otherwise, I can't really do that. And you start to kind of, it can even be really beneficial things that pull you away from it. So I think it's that balance of, you know, again, I say I can't tell you what that thing is that's pulling you away from drawing. And being at a video game company, maybe this isn't something I should say, but like maybe it's video games, or maybe it's just Netflix. Maybe you're just watching Friends over and over and over and over again on a loop. Maybe it's like whatever it happens to be that you can tell is the thing that, you know, I don't have my sketchbook in hand for some reason. Yeah. So there's whatever that is, but then there's also just trying to. So if you can remove that thing, and you know you're still drawing, you know you're still focused on it, you're still learning, it's easier to integrate those other things in an intentional way, I think. Like, and
Right.
I'll use gardening as an example because that's the one I've been trying to get more into. Is
Mhm.
I'm working on my garden, but I can think about that as being, okay, I need a break. I need to like unclasp myself from this for a bit, get my fingers a little dirty, and then when I come back, I can look at it in a more intentional way.
Yeah.
Rather than saying like, well, I know I need to draw the next Tellurion, but maybe I'll plant some carrots. Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
at for inspiration. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
But okay, I'll just finish this one thing. I mean, it's kind of like with the chores thing. Sometimes it's kind of like penetrating a shield. Like it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm gonna draw, but crap, I haven't like done X, Y, and Z
Uh-huh.
my routine like responsibilities. Okay, and then like you get sidetracked whilst you're doing like the third one of those,
Yep.
and then everything goes into chaos.
Yep. The man with no screen name says, "Can't tell you how many customers come into the store to ask what the hell is wrong with me when I'm drawing a character's expression." And then Dry White Snowflake, I have that issue too, though sometimes I just look kind of zoned out instead of making the face I'm drawing. Seems to freak people out even more at times.
But they're not cut out for
Uh-oh.
everyone else.
Have you got my audio?
Yeah, I don't hear him.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
think
can't hear
so.
anything.
Yeah, my
Uh-oh.
audio
Huh.
too.
Okay. Oh, there he is.
You got me back?
Is he back?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. Oh,
Yay!
good. Phew.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Actually. So my question's more about like working professionally in the entertainment industry.
Okay.
One of my peers from school, she's been working for a studio for almost 3 years now,
Mm-hmm.
and she's commented on different things that have surprised her, like about the professional pipeline and about
Mhm.
the entertainment industry in general.
Okay.
And I was just curious, are there things that like you have been surprised by in relation to the industry? Or?
I was really surprised, and I guess I still, well, I'm not so much surprised by this anymore. But I have in the past been very surprised by how many people the industry is, just that it is made of people. I went in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed thinking, awesome, cool, we're going to see how this works, and this is going to be super fun. And you realize that it's all just goofballs all the way down. That are just people who kind of sort of know what they're doing, but not really. They just did something that sort of worked once, so now it's their job, and now you're looking around and thinking like, well, this could be done better, and well, why aren't we doing it this way, and what about this, and what about this? And you just realize, so many people are like, that's just how we do it. And from the friends that I've had, the friends that I came up with who have gone to work in all sorts of studios, that's a pretty universal reaction, is like, wow, this is just a bunch of people. So I think that has been big. It also, I think it's a good sign in that it kind of means, if you have that reaction, I know for myself, it meant, okay, I see ways that I think this should be done. I will attempt to prove that my ways work in whatever form that I can. So it means, great, you're gonna have stuff to do. You're gonna be busy, and then some of them you can prove to yourself like, oh no, I'm the goofball. I have no idea what I'm doing. All right, we'll do it your way. And in other cases, people say, wow, yeah, okay, let's do it like that from now on. What have we been doing? It varies a lot. So that was I think does that answer enough of your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just curious about, like the opinions of people that are working in a professional setting.
Right. Well, and yeah, you realize too that, professional, I don't know. I used to think of, I think fondly of the BioWare that I started at, feeling very much like just a bunch of nerds in a treehouse. It's just like, yeah, let's make a game. It's gonna be cool, and then this will be cool. Yeah, that'd be cool. Hey, here's another cool idea. Cool, and it's great. And I think really there is still definitely a massive amount of that. But I think too, as the industry grows and as like we now have a lot. I was actually talking to Luke Christianson the other day at our all hands meeting. And for those who don't know, Luke Christianson is, that character in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean that is like has grown into the walls of the ship.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Luke. He
Nice.
he joined the company just after they shipped Shattered Steel, which was the very first game BioWare ever made. So he has been there and writing since effectively day one. Like the BioWare, as anybody really knows it, he's been there.
So he's the OG of OGs.
Oh yeah, and I was joking with him that it's like I'm pretty green by comparison, dude. You're like compared to you, I'm still just a whippersnapper at my 14 years. He's like, you'll get there. But no, he's like we were just joking about how we've been doing this for so long, and it's cool. Like there's still that excitement of, well, let's try it again better next time, and maybe this time we can do this, and oh, that didn't work, but if we try this, maybe we can do that. It's because we were just talking about someone asked Luke. I hope he doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't mind me kind of badly repeating this, but someone asked him like, why haven't you left? Like in all these years you've been here, over 20 years. What's like, why haven't you gone on to move elsewhere when other people have? He's like, honestly, it hasn't stopped being fun. Like there's been a chance to try something new every time, and there's been a chance to like there's every game there's like a whole handful of things that you get in your head and you want to try, and they don't quite work for some unavoidable reason, but you're like, next time, and eventually you build up a whole bunch of those, and every game you actually get to do some of them, so it's kind of awesome. Yeah, Nicky Ofino says that sounds like an awesome work environment to be a part of, and it really is. And the man with no screen name says, so the company is his BioWare then. Yeah.
Have you ever scrapped an idea for one project and then have it be like the center of another project?
Yes. 2 big times. Both Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition, I think, are those in a lot of ways. Because to work backwards in time, Inquisition started off as an expansion for Dragon Age 2. It was going to be called Exodus, and it was going to include many of the events that take place in Inquisition. But a call was made to turn that into just bite the bullet, turn that into a game unto itself, put it on the Frostbite engine, I forget even what it's called, but whatever the sad little engine we were using for Dragon Age before that was, and just send it off on the Viking boat and fire arrows at it. And so, yeah, so it was cool. I've said a few times that it was a huge advantage for us on the concept side, because story and content and a whole bunch of setting and things like that remained relevant. And so we basically gained about 6 months or so. And it let us focus on more of the art history and some of the more self-indulgent elements of world building. And it kind of while the rest of the team kind of figured out how to even use Frostbite. And so that in that case that really worked. And then the other time was actually Dragon Age 2. So Dragon Age, I had been working on a project called Revolver, and I'd been working on it for a long time, and we had developed characters and environments and all sorts of all sorts of ideas. There's actually a mountain of concept art that I still have in a folder at work that will probably never be released. Well, at least until all the people who care die. But the cool thing was, when that project was canceled, a whole lot of it found its way into Dragon Age 2. Just because in trying to create a game within the window that we had, starting with something is better than starting with nothing. And so we took all of the material that we had built up and Dragon Age-ified it, including locations, big concepts, characters, like Aveline, for example. I have drawings of the character that was Aveline by several different teammates that then became Aveline. And so it was neat being able to, there was the disappointment whenever if a project gets canceled, but it was also cool to see it sort of breathe new life, have new life breathed into it. Plus, too, I mentioned in the previous stream that we have a folder that's on the Dragon Age drives that is like the island of misfit creatures.
Oh, no.
So every time a creature is super cool, but maybe not what we either have time for, or it doesn't work with our story, or it doesn't work with design, or whatever, it goes in there, and then every next game, there's kind of a fun little tour through the island, and just to say, okay, is any of this relevant? Can any of this be elevated? And so that's always fun. And I finally did in the previous video. Someone asked if I could think of any particular creature that had been rescued from the island of misfit monsters, and I finally thought of one. It was called the Varteral. Let me see if I can. I will never be able to spell that, but hopefully spell correct.
Is that the Mass Effect, like, dog lizard thing?
No, it was... Here, I'll pull in a screenshot of it, and then I'll show you the concept. Because this thing had been around forever, I think. And it may have even begun life as a Mass Effect creature, but then become Dragon Age. So here it's covered in VFX spider webs, but it's enough to give you the idea. Let me just embiggen this for you. So this thing is called the Varteral, and it was a creature that started life. I have a teeny tiny little concept, but this concept had been around forever, and it was actually done by a guy named Sung Kim, who has not been around for a long time. But at a certain point, we did this creature battle where we broke up into small teams that each had a concept artist, an animator, a designer, and a model builder, and just said, okay, dig through the creature folder, find a creature, use that as a leaping off point, and get it in game. And so we were all kind of trying to compete with each other, like who can create the most interesting, crazy creature. It was a blast. It was really fun. So this was one of them, and so yeah, got rescued from the island. Guest says, "Hey, I have a question. Have I ever had to draw something I had a phobia of? For example, drawing spiders while you're arachnophobic. If so, how did you conquer that situation?" I think there really is a difference between drawing something and being exposed to it. Similar to the sense that I think maybe as artists, if you guys have ever done figure drawing, there's inevitably that point where you talk to somebody who is not an artist and you tell them that you do figure drawing, and they go, "Oh, isn't that like weird? Isn't that kind of an odd thing?" But until you do it, you don't realize how removed it is. It's not at no point are you ever thinking like naked. It's the object that you are drawing. Like there's a big gap there. And so I think for scary or gross or weird stuff, I think it can be kind of the same thing. Like I think we can separate if it's like you're not a fan of spiders, but drawing a spider and being really interested in the design and how the mechanics work and figuring out how to, like, I think it can even be a benefit. Like what freaks you out about spiders, now make it worse.
I mean, that's what Peter Jackson did for The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and to great effect. It's especially when you're increasing the scale, because part of an element of it can, for some creatures anyway, be their tininess, and so what do you preserve in order to keep the creepiness going at a larger scale? Okay, so for reference to talk about the drawing here, I'm actually not very happy with the perspective. So what I'm doing is I'm lowering the camera. I drew the figures without the actual setting in mind. Here I have the pillars, these two pillars that are breaking into the scene, and these characters are they're kind of at odds with it. So I'm recalibrating.
I think it was the last stream or the stream before, but you're talking about how one of the characters you repositioned like that coat, so you didn't have to redesign it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like,
Yeah.
Did you figure out which character that?
At this point, I'm pretty sure that became the mage wardens from Dragon Age Inquisition.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I don't think he never actually got. I realize now that design was done for Exodus, and actually all the characters got passes. What would have been new appearances to sort of show what had happened to them in their story. And so for Anders, one of the things that he had was that he went off and kind of reconnected with the wardens, and we wanted to show kind of a more official version of that. So when the time came to say, okay, design mage wardens, we're like, well, we've got this. It totally works.
Like a fringe.
Yeah. And actually, small little story. The outfit that everybody wears when they start Inquisition, the kind of like saggy coat with metal shoulder pads and all that, the original design for that was that part of it was going to be your brother's new appearance. There was going to be some changes to that, but that would have been, what was Hawk's brother? What was his name? Carver. That was going to be part of Carver's new appearance. But with Inquisition, we needed a kind of universal, a very innocuous, non-specific armor to start with, and that ended up being the best candidate. Okay, that's a little better. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I was just curious to hear your like personal philosophies on storytelling in general, and what it is that like drives you to want to tell stories.
Ooh. Uh-oh. Pandora's box.
I like these questions.
Yeah.
They're good questions.
Yeah.
They are. Dive in the psyche of Matt.
Well, I have actually been trying to articulate some of these thoughts. If for anyone who I haven't really begun announcing it in a major way, only minimal, that I'm going to be speaking in Poland later. And so I've been trying to collect my thoughts. One of the ACAD talk was basically readdressing a talk that I gave in Montreal. It was giving the same talk again with a few tweaks, and the context for that was I realized I was going out to speak at a little conference that had some staggeringly incredible artists in attendance, and I felt massively overwhelmed. Had no idea what I was going to say that would be of any value when compared with the likes of like Terrell Whitlatch or James Gurney or Raphael Lacoste or I think even Jeff Simpson was, I think he was there at that one.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like I'm supposed to put on a microphone and talk to people after they have been listening to the likes of those artists. So what could I possibly bring? And I felt like the one lesson that I have learned big time is, well, part of it was, okay, I've actually been doing this for about, at the time, maybe 12 years. What have I learned? And one of the major things that I've learned is the importance of story. Just how significant it actually is. And I always have to add the caveat that I get from like a cheesy corporate speak that a lot of people talk about story, and it becomes almost like a cheap marketing idea. But really, truly, story is one of the main things we have. It's one of the main things that even as a species is kind of like our identity is wrapped up in it. One of the things that one talk, or years ago, I listened to a university course on Tolkien by a guy called, who on a podcast called The Tolkien Professor. And the neat thing was he went and talked about a whole bunch of the other stuff. So there's Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, The Silmarillion, but Tolkien did some other works that were pretty broad. And just some of his, and then finding out more and more detail about some of his conversations with C.S. Lewis. And there's something that I personally found really profound, was in listening to Tolkien explaining myth to C.S. Lewis, and by extension myth is like storytelling, what the actual significance of storytelling really is, the weight of it. And there's a poem that he wrote that he published, and it's actually what helped convince C.S. Lewis, called Mythopoeia. And I won't go look it up now, but effectively he emphasizes the importance of like things aren't real until there are stories told about them. A tree, or I'm not even gonna. It's one of those things where it's like it's so well crafted that to talk about it without a direct quote feels insulting. But I think that in the sense of when Tolkien was trying to explain this concept to C.S. Lewis, and being able to say that we have been, and we, like our culture, has been imprisoned by the materialists, and that people now simply believe only in what you can see and touch and measure, and refuse to acknowledge anything else. And that what stories offer is actually a view outside of the prison. Tolkien was fond of saying that, or like he said that he didn't like the term escapism because that implied a negative, whereas like if you are a prisoner of war, escape is far from negative. In fact, it's to be applauded. And so I think, regardless of where your beliefs are, and regardless of that can be a discussion for another day, but stories say more than anything else, that they're important, that they are these carrying mechanisms. Buddha Fox found the poem, and it's linked in the chat if anyone wants to click it. And I suggest you do. They're these carrying mechanisms for every good thing we've ever learned. Like archetypes are archetypes for a reason. We tell these stories. We tell the same. I mean, not to throw more shade at it than is necessary, but you look at Star Wars: A New Hope. It is telling the story, and people love it. And you look at, let's say, The Last Jedi, it's telling its own story, and then it gets its reaction. there's this to me there's this idea of like what are I'm sorry, I'm trying to think through this as I talk about it, so forgive my pausing.
It's okay. It's a broad question.
It really is. It really is. I think we as artists have the opportunity, if we want it, to be involved in the telling of the story. And in that sense, you know, what is heroism? What is the journey we all go on? What does it mean to work hard in the face of adversity and to, you know, like in the Jungian archetype sense, like descend into the shadows and rescue your father and all of that kind of stuff. These things that are archetypes in stories across the centuries, millennium. And so I just think that in whatever, I'm still learning how to do it. I'm still learning what it means. And part of doing Tellurion, part of creating Tellurion is an attempt to explore that, is to say, using visuals alone, what's possible with story? And can I wrap myself around the story enough in visuals? Like, can it do that? I believe it can. And I honestly think, I mean, I know it's still just like this one guy's personal project slowly being uploaded, but people have been following along and interested, and I feel like to at least some small level, like some chord has been struck. So I just feel like it's so that's
I like the head turn you just did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I needed to shift that a little. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but
No, it does. It does. In school, one of the things that I remember most in one of my art philosophy classes was a piece that was written by Barrett Newman.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point, or the thesis of his piece, was that the first man was an artist, and he goes through this list of like hunters, warriors, gatherers, and his argument is that the first man was an artist, and that's why, essentially saying that man's ability to be creative and to like create stories essentially is what makes us who we are.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, this is one of those cases where I will be non-specific, just because I don't feel like I necessarily need to be specific. But many people think about it in terms of like, we were made in the image of a creator, and with part of that comes that urge, that drive, that passion to create ourselves as well. And I, you know, even if it's just in the sense of, let's say, like, the metaphor I like is a little kid pushing along a plastic lawnmower. Maybe not terribly effective, but just loves what his dad's doing and just wants to emulate it, wants to copy it. And so to a certain point, that has become kind of how I perceive this, is like, what am I doing? I'm just some goofball trying to draw. I'm just trying to learn. I love doing it. I just feel compelled to do it, but it's really just, I don't know. It's like I see my dad mowing the lawn. I've got this little plastic lawnmower. I want to do that. That's neat.
Oh, I have a question. It's
a little more practical.
I guess so. Well, it's but I'd be interested in also hearing the thoughts of everyone in the chat, because it's if your analysis are artists or just generally work on stuff. So do you have any techniques that you employ if you're feeling tired whilst you're working? like to just like maintain your focus on the piece?
Um,
I use music.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I find a
Podcasts
piece
are
that
good.
will, yeah, that too. But I find a piece that will like kind of invoke the feeling that I want for the drawing, and
Mhm.
it's very immersive. I mean, drawing itself is quite immersive to begin with, but when you feel what you're listening to, and I try to find music that doesn't have words, but that's just a personal, like, you know, opinion of that. But I am very emotional with my drawings, and I like to feel my drawings, and so I play music that is relevant, and
Yeah.
it actually makes it, I don't know, better for me, and I can see a color palette, which I've always struggled with. I always like color theory has been an issue with me, but with music I can find a color palette,
Right.
and so yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I guess it like gives you focus.
I
Sorry, go on.
sometimes, sorry,
Oh,
I
okay.
sometimes put on movies that I have memorized, like some of my favorite movies that I've seen 1,000 times. Because like I know all the words and I know what's gonna happen, so I don't have to actively listen, but it's just background noise.
Right.
Talking
Okay.
just helps focus, right?
Yeah.
Because listening to music, sometimes you get tired of it,
hmm
and it's when I have to focus, I talk like videos, like R&D fantasy. I repeat them all the time.
cool.
and these YouTube like the records of these streams I listen to. I was drawing weekend. I just listened to the records of the streams like 3 times.
Oh wow.
No stop. But it really helps focus, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess
I would have to agree with that because it's like I would be in class. I remember in high school and college, if I'm not really into the course and the teacher's just lecturing on and on, I'll be doodling.
Right.
And I found that I draw more around those times. So
Um,
I guess because it's more interesting than listening to the lecture. But
Right.
yeah.
I mean, for me, I kind of go to like interviews, like on YouTube's and stuff, where
Mhm.
they interview other artists, and like sometimes when they say certain phrase, it kind of perks my interest. Like, ooh, I should try that, and I just go over and give a little whirl on my end. It doesn't always come out right, but hey, I tried it. Whatever they said, I tried it.
I've actually got a totally opposite solution. That this is kind of my nuclear bomb. When music fails, when audiobooks fail, when podcasts fail, I go and do like a super quick and really intense, and by quick I mean like 10-15 minutes, but like ultra quick, ultra intense workout. And I calm down
Right.
and I come back and it's like I just woke up first thing in the morning. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've tried that before. Yeah, it's really effective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always good to walk away from a piece of work and come back later to it with new fresh eyes. I mean, I remember Ryan Kingsley, one of my instructors, uh, said like the longer you look at it, the more you become delusional of your stuff to the point you start nitpicking on the tiny thing that is not really important.
Yeah, big time.
Mhm.
Like I get frustrated or restless, and I just like I have to get up. I have to walk away as much as I don't want to because I have poor discipline skills. Like as soon as I walk away and distract myself with something else, I am at risk of not going back to it that day. But it is best to just kind of like look away for a little bit.
Mhm. Well, I was gonna say my answer to that is far less interesting in that if I'm feeling exhausted and I'm struggling with an image, I now go to bed.
I did.
That's good
actually.
as well. It gives you rest your eyes and you give your brain a time.
Exactly.
You give your brain a chance to just recharge and like reload.
That's
Unless
right.
your brain is constantly think about it and you're dreaming about it in your head.
True.
Yeah, I get restless sleeps like that too, where I'm asleep but I'm dream working, and then I wake up. I'm like, oh, I didn't do any of that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't even remember like the details I was so focused on.
Wait, I have a question. Do you ever guys like have like a really good dream and it's awesome? You wake up and you have no paper and pen, and you just like run to like find any pencil or paper and try to draw what you dreamt of that night. or do you guys just I'll dream it when I wake up, I'll draw it then?
I draw it.
I
I
keep
draw it
a
immediately.
notepad by my bed specifically for that.
It's kind of funny that that's actually like a 1 or 2 night a week occurrence for me. I wake up and I'm just like, oh god, where the hell's my iPad? And then I go at it for like 5 minutes, and then crappy sketch. If it's like 5 in the morning, I just go back to sleep. But yeah.
Yeah, I sleep next to my iPad. It's like literally on my pillow next to me.
Oh boy.
But that would, I guess, in relevance to that, like, Matt, what would you do to discipline yourself? Because I, as someone who's like trying to create art as my career, and I feel like I know I've been told like it's not too late, but I kind of have that feeling that it is, because I went to college to study one thing, and that's completely like opposite of what I'm trying to do. And so it's more like self-teaching, going back into the love of it, because it was something I did when I was a kid, and super rusty. And I'm just like, okay, I have to focus on building my skill, and at the same time turning it into my career. And the discipline part of like making sure you devote those hours to practicing without really stressing yourself out. What would you have done, or what have you done to kind of help you get into the habit and the groove of drawing every day or as often as possible?
That's a really good question, and I wish I had an answer that sounded really intentional and smart, because I don't, and partly because I have historically been terrible at being disciplined. So what has turned into discipline, yeah, it's funny. I'm sure I may have something useful to say, but it really feels like I am the last person that should be answering this one, because it's like with Tellurion, it's just that I love this project, and it's been something I've been wanting to do for so long. And I feel so motivated on it that even on those nights where I actually do just crash into bed and I'm lying there and it's just like, okay, I could just go to sleep. There's still that part of me that says, just
keep working.
Put your feet on the ground, go downstairs. You don't need to do much. Just do the inking pass on one character, or just whatever it is. Just do one little thing. And
Do you ever set timers for yourself? Like go and work for 30 minutes or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, but I mean, effectively, with Tellurion has kind of a time box on it, because it's after the kids go to bed, and after I've spent some time with my wife, and after that, then I come down, and between 8:35 p.m. Mountain Standard Time and about 11:30, I'm just like, that's my zone to get this done.
When you penetrate the shield.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it's similar to just like I would say, losing weight. It's like diet and exercise. You don't have to work out. Just put on your shoes and go to the gym, and whatever happens, happens. Yeah, it's almost just like, I think, I was going to quote Eminem there, but I don't think I should do that.
Do it anyway.
It's the one line that has always stuck in my head is, I bully myself because I make me do what I put my mind to. And that like, just physically put yourself there. If I'm doing sketches or reference things, like if I pull up a reference image, it's like, well, I have to draw it. I'll have to draw it now. Okay. Do some studies. Yeah, I think it's been that. It's just put on your shoes, put yourself in position, sit at your desk, and just sit there for 5 minutes, and then walk away and go to bed or watch a movie or something. But at least just sit at your desk for 5 minutes. And if something happens, great.
Kind of like you're tricking your mind. It's like you're leading it in, and then you get the trap is there. You're in.
All of a sudden you realize, how did I get to my desk?
Wait a
What
second.
happened?
Well, and honestly, that's been kind of like Tellurion started as that. It started as okay, I'm gonna do one. I'll just do one, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, well that kind of worked. That was sort of painless. I'll do two. Okay, well that's kind of nice. And then by the time I got to even like the first 6, it was like, oh shit, this is I've built momentum, and I started to but the nice thing was too, I mean, I at least had the advantage of being able to post them, so I could at least get like response. I wasn't working in a vacuum. Yeah, so I think it was Tellurion's been that. It's been basically just like drips, just drips. Like I don't really ever feel like I accomplish much in a night. Like I've just been fiddling away, trying to go from thumbnail to pencil sketch. But at a certain point, that pencil sketch will turn into the inks, and then the inks I'll just add some color, and then eventually I'll do some shadows, and then some color grading, and then the next one will be done. And this is 131. So I've said many times, I am surprising myself with this project. That's why I feel like I'm the last person to speak, because like what has been happening on Tellurion is nothing short of a miracle as far as my working habits historically have gone. Because I am very impatient as an artist. Like I want to have a finished image. I just don't want to make it.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
And I feel like I rush myself, and then it turns out not as I expected or want it to be.
Yeah.
Or it's just completely different than what I had in mind. And it's like, how can I transfer what's in my head through my hands onto the tablet, onto paper?
Mm-hmm.
And after rushing through it, or just kind of like psyching myself out like a quarter of the way through, just like, this is terrible, this is a bad idea, I don't want to do this, and then throw it away and onto another drawing, and I do it all over again. It's like 1 in every 10 drawings is actually one that I'm proud of, but I feel like, oh, I spent too much time on this. I need to, pump out more drawings. I need to be able to do more than how I'm able, like, than what my skill set is allowing me to, and then it stresses me out. Because it's like, oh, I need to devote more time, when maybe I devote too much time, and then I don't know, it just becomes a mess, a mental mess.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I mean, I have, like my workflow has been really weird since I started Tellurion, but usually my art folders are filled with, 5 smoldering pieces of crap that didn't work, and then one thing that did, and then another 10 attempts that crash and burn. And a couple of years ago, I put a post on, this is all the way back on Blogspot, I put up a post of just like garbage. It's just like, here's just stuff that is just, it's not going anywhere. I thought it would. It all failed. But here it is. And it felt really kind of good just to get it out there, just because it's like, yeah, this is real. This is true. Like, not everything's going to work. Either I didn't have time, or I eventually realized that the idea was ridiculous, or whatever it was. In the chat here, impatient artist. Sometimes I have to admit my own worst enemy to my work is me in that regard. Yeah. And Lord Putdown says, that speaks to my soul, Matt, and I'm glad.
There's actually a really, really good book for this. Doesn't hit everything that you guys have been talking about, but if you guys have heard of The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
It's on my shelf.
That's quite good.
It is a very good one. Yep.
I think
what was the author again?
Stephen Pressfield. Stephen spelled with a V-E-N. But I think one of the best things about that book is like obviously there's a lot of really, really good details in there, but I think the main point that he gets across is ritual and habit.
Yep.
And how to if I remember it correctly, it's identifying within yourself what habits you have that are holding you back, which ones are healthy, which ones are not, how to instill in yourself new habits that will allow you to sit down, get work done, and really, really ritualizing your life, and that of course ties really, really closely into discipline. In fact, it is discipline.
Yeah.
which is my struggle.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning that book.
No problemo. I actually, a friend of mine based his in. He did like an art talk, and throughout the whole talk, he was saying some stuff, and I was like, "This is very familiar." And I got on my phone, and I was just like, "Oh, you're doing the War of Art talk." But it was good because he was able to deliver the entire book, like the Cole's Notes version, to a crowd of like 200 people.
Yeah.
I was talking to him after. I was just like, Stephen Pressfield, and he was like, "Damn it,
get out of here."
But no, it was fantastic.
He was trying to be smart in front of all his other underlings.
Yeah, people that totally have never read or heard of that book, absolutely not. It was not a room of artists at all. No, it was a room of artists. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Caught him red-handed. Cookie jar.
How would you push your comfort bubble in drawing? Like, I tend to draw the same things again and again. And it's like, okay, I need to do something new, or a little bit more, I guess, flexible for my characters or creatures or whatever, so they don't look as stiff. But every time I attempt to do that, it's just a nightmare.
Well, I think it's some advice that I've been throwing around that that I've been trying to actually exercise now has been whenever I can tell that I'm faking something, then I know it's time to study. So if I'm working on a drawing and I can tell that I've very definitely been just like trying to skim over something, like that shoulder blade wasn't really right. Well, okay, fine. I could get away with it, but I've been trying to really be particular about it and just say no. Go, okay, that tells you that that's what needs to be figured out next. Go study the shoulder blade. Okay, cool. And then kind of just letting that drive the gist of my studies. Like I actually, part of why I just posted up on Instagram and a few other spots some studies that I had just been working on. Part of doing those was that I was feeling a little bit of the fakery in some of my Tellurion stuff, and just saying I was just kind of generally and just smudge it. So I found some really drapery intensive references and did some sketches, and it just helped me build up a little bit more of that confidence.
So I have a question about when you're thumbnailing. Yours is often, at least I think, have a really good balance of foreground, middle ground, and background elements.
Okay.
When you're thumbnailing, do you have like mental percentages in mind, or like how do you plan out your foreground and background elements when you're thumbnailing?
Sure. Yeah, there's no percentages, but I think just generally speaking, I have a belief that creating depth actually acts as an invitation to the viewer. So it is actually something that I would very much like to infuse in as many drawings as possible. And so I'm looking for opportunities to I'm trying not to have just here, let me backtrack a little bit. One of the things that I don't like in comics when I'm reading comics is an entire page that's just face, 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 A camera, B camera, A camera, B camera, A camera, B camera. It just feels like a waste of a page. And I know sometimes it's totally necessary and there's no other way to get across what needs to get across, but it just feels so often like, okay. So,
like just talking pumpkin heads.
I guess, well, it's just that, yeah, like you're just looking at two people having a conversation, and it's not like, whereas in like what visual storytelling can give you is something going on in the environment helps to change the context, or says something about the psychology of the characters, or the mood or the feeling of the characters, or foreshadows something that's coming next. Like you just, there's so much that you can do. It's just people rarely do it. And so what I would like to achieve, and I think I've actually even just rarely achieved it in Tellurion, is rarely have two characters just interacting. That I want there to be the characters, but they're in a context. There is a background. There is something going on. And so like every image, to whatever extent is possible, is an opportunity to do some visual storytelling, whether it's a sculpture in the background or the particular color of the clouds or whatever it is. It all has the opportunity to help support the story that's going on. So I'll try to take as many of those opportunities as I possibly can. And so that said, when I'm trying to compose things and create that sense of depth, for myself, that's just kind of generally what the idea is. It's trying to say, okay, here are the figures, but where are they in context, and what kind of a space are they in, and it also is just a great compositional tool. It just really helps to if you're working in foreground, midground, background, it's really easy to maintain clarity, no matter how full or empty your composition is. So does that answer it at all?
Yeah, it does.
For the I hope I'm not encroaching on any sensitive territory in regards to the picture, because just arbitrarily identifying an object, not going into any story. But it looks like that's a statue. No, I thought that like, because like the figure that the woman is behind, it looks like that pose is the same pose as the figure in the foreground, and like I think that it's cool because like that seems to be indicated by the contrast between like the body language.
Mm-hmm. That is good.
Like, the story prevents you from saying anything.
All sorts of inferences can be made, but yeah.
I think it's cool how at this level. Well, I mean, I don't actually know. Of course, I don't know if that's what the intention is, but like,
Sure. Well, yeah, it's and that's the thing, is like it's trying to, at as low a resolution as possible, make sure that it's reading. I'm trying to make sure it's reading for me, because I have my intent, but I don't know if it's actually working until I've actually executed it. Hotkeys for expanding the circles out from the central pivot like that. Oh yeah, what are my that's the weird thing about hotkeys, is that you just start to do them to the point where they're an instinct, and then you can't remember what it was. So let's see. There's a triangle, Control T, and then Shift Alt, and I'll grab the corners, and then that will spread it out. So if I want to create recurring ones, I'll just duplicate that layer, Control T, Shift Alt, and then pull the corners out, and it'll expand. And then the handy thing too, if you want, you can move the pivot point. So Control T, and then move that up here, and then Shift Alt, and it'll use that as its reference point.
That's awesome.
So now I'm gonna play the matching game. Actually, no.
Watching you work is so enjoyable.
Oh, that's good.
I agree.
I always find it kind of insufferable to watch artists work. That man with no screen name, I think, needs to go. Doing a hot take on hotkeys, I see. I think this is your...
like the pulled off the stage by
Possibly the nerdiest thing I've done, but I mapped Photoshop's brush, erase, eyedropper, and fill bucket to ASWD. Whoa. Yep, that's hardcore.
Well, if it works.
All right.
So, Matt, so I noticed that you're not going to be doing a cosplay anytime soon.
No, probably
since you
not.
shaved.
Oh, yeah. The beard always gets to a point of annoyance. It has to go. Now, it's like I've said many times, I've had to explain to actual cosplayers even that, unfortunately, I can't think of anything I like enough to cosplay as.
What, the robot?
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, if I get this published and I start shopping it around at conventions, just spend a day. Just spend a day as the robot.
It's like, it'd be perfect because he doesn't speak or anything. So
Exactly,
you
yeah,
have,
yeah.
Like, put on a voice.
I have to have
to
it.
embarrass yourself
Exactly.
by, like,
No beard required.
Exactly.
Or he could be like when he's being that character, he's like Adam Savage. Let's find Matt Rowe. Where's Waldo?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, Adam's like wear like what? A no face.
Didn't it take them like less than 5 minutes to identify Adam Savage as Kylo Ren?
That one, yes, but the other ones before, like his Studio Ghibli ones, like no face, like no one ever recognized it until he's like, I think someone like tweeted, and then everybody starts swarming around him. Then. But other ones, I don't think he was spotted too easily, from what I heard. But now he's posting on YouTube. People are actively searching for him.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be fun.
This
Try to
is
find
a
your
really
favorite artist. Oh, that's okay. Go
Ask
ahead.
away.
This is kind of a technical question, I guess, but like I'm watching you work and I'm seeing how many layers you work in.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use a lot of layers when I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
It lags out my computer. Yours doesn't seem to be lagging as much.
Well,
Do you have like a build or? I'm just curious.
yeah. At a certain point, I should probably actually even I'll talk to the people involved. But a friend of a friend who is very knowledgeable in computers, I had the opportunity to just say, if you were going to build a machine that's job was exclusively to run Photoshop to the best of its ability and browse the internet, and that was it, what would you do? And so I was able to get a very focused machine that we built from scratch, and so this machine is built with Photoshop in mind, and any additional things I do, like I can play a video game on it, but probably not with ultra high settings, and I'm not terribly interested in that. I can't. I'm actually a very non-technical person, so I don't remember what's all in it and how it all fits together and all that stuff.
I was just curious.
But yeah.
I
Okay.
try not to load my computer with like a lot of files or anything, so I have an extension or external hard drive. That's it. So like I just load that with all my files, and it keeps Photoshop happy.
Yeah.
It's not being crowded by my other files.
I'm not
Actually,
sure
yeah,
if
that's oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Oh, I mean, like, I maybe I missed it. Did you make your own grid out of it, or do you, I mean, like, do you find other images and put grid lines on there for the image?
Oh, I just made that real quick. Yeah, it's just lines.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing special about that.
All right.
No, I know I've seen people use, like, there's perspective line tools and a bunch of other stuff, and that's neat. That's cool. I wouldn't, I'm pretty low tech with my Photoshop usage.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me about my dad. He uses grid paper and he does a lot of good stuff, and his mind in 3D all the time.
Yeah.
But just wondering.
Could a computer that's been really, really well optimized to only run Photoshop kind of also double as a 3D machine? And I'm not talking about like crazy realistic rendering, but if you're doing basic stuff to sort of use as a base for 2D work, do you think that would also kind of cross over?
I don't know. I'm not sure what the 3D programs are running these days. Like I have SketchUp on here, but that's not a very intensive program. Like that's not crazy or anything.
I think that's possible. I mean, as long as he's not using it as a render processor, I think it would be possible, because I use my computer as a 3D/Photoshop as well. So I do a lot of modeling on 3D, so it should have a higher processor, but most of the processor is on the graphics card or the video card, depending on which 3D program you're using. Because Photoshop, I believe it's only using, it's probably using on the not the maybe the rendering processor, but it doesn't take as much as the other one, because if you're more focused on 3D heavy, it's probably more on the graphics card. Mostly because I know Substance are mostly on graphics card, but they're trying to go to CPU, changing it up a bit. But yeah, it's depending on, I mean, I think Matt's computer can do like 1 or 2 3D programs and maybe ZBrush, but he can't do Photoshop at the same time.
Right.
Unless you're, so it is possible for his computer, but
right.
But if
Sweet.
he's focused on Photoshop, I advise against it.
Right. He's got a question in the chat that says, "Hey Matt, I'm currently going to ACAD and I like it so far, and I'm learning a lot. I know the teachers have a lot of knowledge and I respect them. However, it can be hard to balance between the extreme of doing what you think is right or just taking their direction. Is there a good way to balance between taking their advice but not just letting them art direct your entire project?" Learn the lesson that I learned, and it's just do what they say. Just do it. And then go do your own stuff at home. If there's something that you want to do in a certain way, just go make your own. Your teachers have knowledge, and it's awesome. And the one thing that I learned, thankfully, before I was done, was that every teacher, if you can study their own personal work or study their own professional work, just study how they work and make something that is somewhat similar to that, chances are they will love it and give you a great grade. That sounds kind of sneaky, but it's true. And I think if you're feeling frustrated by it, try to just even say that, saying, I am, like, teacher, I am feeling frustrated by it. I want to try this. Can you tell me why you don't think that's a good idea, or what I am doing wrong? Because I got to tell you, like, my having the opportunity to have very knowledgeable people, I'm sure they would be thrilled to teach a student who is that open to correction. I know the times that I've gotten, messages like that where people say, it feels like I've been told this, but I believe it should be this way. Is there some reason that I should believe them? Blah blah. And it's there usually is. There usually is. All right.
So I noticed that the Discord names aren't showing up on the side.
Oh, are they not?
Oh, right. So it wasn't a change in the interface.
I did move things around a little bit, but let me see. That should still be in there, but I guess it's just not. Unless. Okay, try it now. Ah, there we go.
Hello.
Okay, it's up by my portrait.
Oh, okay.
And I just had it like at the bottom layer, so it was not showing up. So now we've got Discord chat names.
question.
Sweet.
Oh, I heard very quietly
Yeah,
someone said that they have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Uh, so I recently started like studying character design.
Mm-hmm.
I'm told by friends and people I show it, they say like the drawing's good, but I've been missing a bit like the story part, the storytelling part. And
Yeah.
I would like to know if you have any advice as how to start
Yeah.
doing anything like that.
Okay, for sure, I do. And here's how it'll go. And this is I feel good that I have now explained this a few times, and this is good because I think it bears repeating. First things first, you're going to design a character. Awesome. Don't draw yet. Do some writing. Write down everything you want to convey about this character, everything you want your audience to understand. Like if you imagine you were writing this character for a Sherlock Holmes episode and you wanted to have Sherlock Holmes like scan them and say, I can tell by his cufflinks that he went to school in India, and I can tell from the powder on his cuffs that he does work near a mine. Like think about it. Try thinking about it like that, where it's saying, what do I want viewers to be able to pick up, versus maybe even what are they hiding, and then from there, then it's a matter of just doing some research and reference as far as like what gets that across, like what images convey all of those things in the words that you'd like a viewer to pick up on. And from that point, I think that'll help really focus your character design.
Because like you've come up with that example a few times, like also in R&D fantasy, like the Sherlock Holmes thing.
Mhm.
But it's only now that I've realized that, because I thought originally it was like there was something of like Sherlock Holmes' design that like struck home.
Oh no, Sherlock Holmes method. Yeah,
Right. Okay. Cool.
you're giving the audience the chance to just to play that for a second. So like a character can show up, and even if they're not going to pick up on it and they're going to need you to point it out at the final act, it's at least there. It's at least material to work with.
Yeah.
It tends to lead to truer drawings and more believable characters and more interesting designs, because it forces you to draw stuff you probably wouldn't draw otherwise. Spaghetti says, I often hear about applying studies after you're done working. Should you be doing studies specifically to the commission's work you're doing, and should it be utilized in the way that if you study a specific pose, you'll use it that day in an illustration? If I understand your question, I think it's all of them, all of the above. Like if you just have some time to study what's important to you. If there's something you want to be able to draw better, go study that. But if you have a big client piece or something that you're trying to work on, and you need to know how to draw horses, draw the crap out of horses, learn their anatomy, figure it out, and just enjoy the fact that now you know more about that. Everything is an education. If in fact, I think it's like it can be a healthy way of looking at it from a contract work or a commission perspective, is that effectively whatever you're being asked to draw, you're being paid to study it. So take it as you have the opportunity to take it as free education if you want to.
Oh, back to the character one.
Mhm.
The one figure out the draw. One of the artists presented me this site. It's called Character Tree. I'll post it on the chat. If someone need more help to be more structuralized, this is sort of a character trees talk about the needs and wants and physical design, so you get the total package of the idea.
So it's like a way for a client or somebody to describe a character that they want in a way that's useful for an artist.
It's more towards storytelling. It's
Okay.
like what motivates them to do this, and if someone look at it, what is the basic look?
Oh, sure. Okay.
What they compare from what they need and what they
Yeah.
want. It's a cool tree. Those who want to work on it, they can look that up. If
Okay.
They want. So, yeah.
Cool. There's also a good site that Leah Smith Art posted with the lets you mix ambient noise. It seems is like they're all sliders. So like right now I'm looking at an environment piece, and I can see how that would be useful because like I can imagine there'd be like some rain, and like you can like adjust it to like the particular setting you're going for, which is really cool.
Sure, yeah. That's cool.
I really like the drama that you're building in this page here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just like watching it all unfold, and I'm trying to figure out like, what the story is saying next,
Yeah.
and I'm just like,
The more you draw, the more tension you're building into the dialogue.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. There's so much
like, Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's so much I would love to say about what's happening or about to happen that I wish I could, but I know that would completely undermine the whole point of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, let the drawing speak for itself.
Yeah.
But as soon as you like turn that piece into like, it looks like a mural on a wall, I was just like, whoa! I thought there was gonna be other people, but
Okay.
it changes the image completely. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, now I see where this is going.
Okay, awesome.
It really does.
Matt, through your process, do you always keep your character naked for the long haul until later you put clothes on, or is it
Yes. No. All will be naked. All will be naked. No, it's right now it's just that I felt like there were other things. The clothing is more of a known quantity because I've drawn their outfits. I feel pretty comfortable that won't be a challenge. So right now I'm kind of leaving it for a bit later while I handle some of this other stuff that, like drawing this on this perspective. That it's a little bit. I haven't done that very much, so I just wanted to make sure that worked. So eventually, after I'm done this, that'll be the next step, is throwing some clothes on there.
okay?
But it does end up, there is always that naked stage because I do very much build up my figures like this. I start with the skeleton and then the muscles and skin, and then I try to layer it up as often as I can.
For some reason, I'm reminded of the Fifth Element.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. There you go. It's the cloning chamber from the Fifth Element. That's how I draw.
I actually prefer drawing my character that you start, skeletal structure and then add it on. I feel like the clothes lay out more organically on the figure that
Exactly. Yeah.
Because then you know like where the folds go and
Yep.
And yeah, stuff like that.
much less guesswork. Because that's all, like, clothing is just a negotiation basically between the folds and the body under it. And so it's I would find it impossible to draw just straight up the clothing without knowing what it is working around.
I think that's like the most common beginner mistakes. People draw with the clothes and not knowing the underbelly of it.
Yeah, and it typically shows.
Will you be doing any critiques in this? Sorry to because like I know that it like tears you from Tellurion.
Mm-hmm.
So
No. The tension, man.
Well, I'm thinking tonight I will probably get up to finish the pencil sketch and then call it a night there. I would do the critiques, but I'm also going to need to take some extra pain meds and lie down.
Oh yeah, because of your leg.
Yeah.
What happened? I'm sorry for prying.
No. I don't mind sharing this embarrassing story on Twitch and eventually YouTube.
Oh man,
Ready for confession
this is
time.
gonna be good.
I was teaching my one of my kids how to jump rope, and not having done it since I was a kid myself, and not being great at it, I just jumped a few times and said, "Oh, phew, okay, that's it. I'm done. That's now you know. All right, go for it." And funnily enough, everything was fine. Everything was totally fine. And then the next day, I had a little bit of a limp. And then the next day, I had a lot more of a limp. And then the next day, I couldn't step on it at all. So I just realized something got torn. And then by walking around like an idiot, something got really torn. So now I'm just trying to actually take it easy.
So daddy bonding time became lethal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and now it's been great. They've been doing an awesome job looking after me, putting headbands on me and bringing teddy bears to keep me safe, and it's been
That's so adorable.
yeah. I've got the best little nurses around.
I feel like that mural is so ominous. It's going to happen to somebody at some point.
Yeah, that's
Matt was talking about foreshadowing earlier. Trying to tell us something.
I mean, it feels like a basilisk might come out of nowhere because it's like statues, snake, maybe basilisk.
Suddenly puzzles.
This is Amy's theory, but I've always been suspicious of the symbol of the belt, like from the very beginning, ever since that frame, because that pattern repeats a lot.
Even the circular pattern too.
Well, even on the mural he's drawing right now, that pattern is the belt buckle. It's everywhere. I want to know why.
Is that a coincidence or is that on purpose?
Or it could be like maybe some kind of secret organization give like founded of the last two who stumble upon it, and it's like a warning to everyone who dare to come in will die.
Oh my god.
Oh, theories! Wow!
Sorry.
That was
No.
amazing.
And I love it. Keep throwing them out there, because I mean, not whenever you want, because I like part of what I actually really loved about a part of why I wanted to do this this way is because it worked with a project that I made a long time ago called My Hero. There was another silent comic where similar to this, I didn't feel confident enough in my own writing to actually write dialogue, and I also get impatient with dialogue heavy comics, and I just wanted the visuals I just wanted it to be fun to look at. But one of the cool things about My Hero was just that I got to watch when it finally just got out there on the internet. I got to listen to and read all kinds of interpretations. And because it's silent, it's so like it's so open to that. And it's cool. I enjoyed that. So it was just fun listening to that. Even just a little bit of real time speculation. I've never heard it in real time before, just in text. But it's neat to see, and it actually does teach me a lot when I see people responding, how they read images.
I hope we're not influencing you in your world.
Sure. No, well, the nice thing is too, though, this is so thoroughly, like like the story is done. Like for me, the story is done. I know where it goes. I know how it ends. I know how it. So, no, there's not a lot of room for influence. Even if people thought, oh, well, here's a cool idea. I actually have just been already thinking about, just in the tiniest sense, about what's next. Like what would I do after Tellurion's done? Because this has been so much fun. I kind of could see just starting something else. So I have a good repository for if someone has some crazy idea. It's like, oh, that's maybe I should have done that. Oh, that's cool. Well, it's too late for this project, but maybe the next one.
It reminds me of a rule that we set for my friend's D&D session. That's like, oh, don't give the GM ideas.
Oh yeah. We always like our GM ideas.
Very wise. Very wise.
Assumptions of what he or she's gonna do. And we'll be like, oh, I bet that we're gonna run into a dragon next, and all of a sudden I see their hands come up, and you know that like that finger touching little mischievous motion. They'll do that.
Yep.
Like, oh, we just gave him
Yep.
the idea. Broke rule number 1.
You have selected the image of your destroyer.
Yeah. Funny enough, talking about murals, I dungeon master myself sometimes, and I use a mural as a trap so many times.
I'm afraid to be in any of your guys' D&D sessions.
Sounds like a party.
I mean, we
Sounds
should.
like a party, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It really is.
It is.
Oh, it's been so long since I've been in D&D. Ah, I miss it.
I always like creating my monsters to be what you least expect. Like I did one round where they had to find this artifact in a cave, and inside is like a Sleeping Beauty type character, but they'd been warned to not wake the beast. But what's guarding the slumbering maiden is an actual monster. So they're like, oh, let's avoid the trained creature and go and wake up Beauty. But she ended up being a banshee, and Beauty was the name of the monster. There's
Nice.
a little name tag I gave her that was just called Beauty. So it's like, oh,
Nice.
That's fun.
literally,
That
wake up
is
Beauty and don't wake up the banshee.
That's great.
awesome.
Hey Matt, now that now that the drawing's been more or less figured out, is this kind of the beginnings of a little lighting pass, or sort of figuring out lighting?
Yeah, very broadly. Just some rough value thrown in there, and part of it is just an early attempt to think about just that depth. Making sure it's a good way, because like the drawing can get a little noisy. So like at this stage, it's there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And value just kind of helps to separate, keep things ordered.
Yeah, because when you're looking at a mess of lines, even if they're really, really nicely drawn lines, it's like, okay, what's in front, what's behind, what's closer to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever use like movie references as as a reference for your lighting style for it, or do you use photographs? I mean, because lighting's kind of difficult for most artists.
Yeah.
Capture it.
Well,
Is
lighting.
there any, like,
I think in a lot of ways I am in more than just lighting. I am a product of the video game development process. Like I've been doing it for 14 years now, and so it's kind of like found its way into all sorts of approaches. So I really think of lighting the way a video game artist, like a 3D artist, would think of lighting. Like I really place it in a location, and then I let it bounce out to wherever it needs to go. So my light is a little bit more organic in the sense that I know what the general color temperature, what the mood is, what the story is, and then I'll just start placing lights like I'm a what's the lighting term? A grip in movies. Just placing lights and then painting out the consequences of those lights and trying to solve for that. But every now and then, for sure, I actually, I follow a ton of stuff on like Instagram or Pinterest or whatever, where it's just everything under the sun. And I will often come across, like some beautiful travel photo or somebody's picture from their farm or like whatever it happens to be, that I'll just think, that's a nice lighting scenario. I never thought about doing something like that, and I will try to find a way to fit that into what I'm working on. And then sometimes too, there have been actually quite a few cases where Alberta is actually a really great sky province. It just gets amazing clouds and stuff like that. It's just awesome. So I will often just see real lighting scenarios and try to make a quick little note and say that's got to make it in there somewhere. Oh yeah, the little paper dolls someone saw in the chat. Make the little wait, did you make the little outfit ref brushes? So these little guys are just my color palette / continuity guides. So I keep updating them as the story goes along, so I know what state their costumes are in, and it just helps make sure that I'm putting stuff on the right side and I'm not forgetting to include anything.
When this does become a book, it'd be really sweet if you had a page with if you save all of them,
Oh yeah,
line
Yes,
them all up.
please.
beside
yeah.
each
Show
other,
them in their
that'd be awesome.
progress. Well, here, since you guys joined, let me open it up. I'll just show you a couple of them. So this is the state that they're in at the moment. And you can see as I pull it back, it's like little changes here and there.
Kind of remind me about Pixar's mood board, like their storyboard
Mhm.
mood board with the color palettes they have, telling their story.
Yeah, well, and I think this really it was definitely inspired by that kind of a thing where it's like, okay, if the character reads well here, then they're gonna read even if you're taking more time with them. It's kind of a way of keeping track of all the important stuff.
Oh, I noticed that in the those paper doll things,
Mhm.
did at any point did the robot have that hood?
Did he?
Like I remember like in the first few
Mhm.
the first things, like he had this cool like cowl,
No.
like masked.
No, I didn't actually start doing this until a bit later because I kept opening the old images and selecting the diffuse color, so I wanted a shorter-hand version of it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I actually like I was saying recently. I've been working on some pretty important characters for our next project, and I've been creating those kinds of things for them, and doing more design work at that level, at that resolution, just because it helps you really keep the main thing, and it keeps.
Cut out again.
Oh, did I?
Lost Matt again.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll come back.
Am I still there? Oh, that's frustrating. Is that's not an OBS thing? That would be a Discord thing.
If you notice.
Turn my mic. Let's see. Here, I'll disconnect and then reconnect.
Like,
Connecting.
Oh, wait.
There we go. Okay, did that work?
Yeah.
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 You're good.
Okay, I just
There you are.
disconnected and reconnected. I did hear you guys. I was hearing you, but you weren't hearing me.
Mhm.
Where did you lose me? Anyone remember what I was saying?
20 seconds.
Okay. Effectively, yeah. I think if okay, so I was talking about the paper doll level of resolution. I think if you're working at that resolution, then it's a lot easier to just keep story as your primary focus, because you're trying to think, okay, well, what is the actual, what are the colors and shapes and the really big forms or big objects that are needed to sell this.
It's like the children's drawing. Like you just got the essential.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a good way of putting it, because it's like the old. What I still think of this. I know a lot of concept art can tend to get super complex, but if I were to draw that, like, you get it, or if
Yeah.
and it's being able to have those. That's almost like the level of thinking you want to keep it at.
Sorry, it's just the Twitch is delayed. So
It is, yeah. You're not going to see the drawing
contextualizing
until
your-
exactly.
Yeah, so
I should talk about it in a more future tensey sort of way, like this thing that I'm about to draw.
that's what this will look like when it.
Oh,
I get. Wouldn't be particularly interesting if you if you did fill up the idea of having like the concept artist zoo with like the monitors, and then like.
Oh, and I think now I'm dropping people.
I think we lost him.
No. I just didn't know where to continue, so I was like, I'll just let it die.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you scared us.
Here we are all starting to get excited about the idea of like a concept artist zoo.
So, wait, I had another, but I forgot what that one was. Okay, I'll be back in a sec.
Sure.
Oh, what do you do for exercise? Because like you're sitting down for long periods of time. Is that a concern?
It is. I'm in this weird limbo where the most I can really do is go for walks at the moment.
Right.
We have a gym at work, but the timing on membership and reimbursement, blah blah blah, and we're actually moving locations. So.
Bigger or smaller?
Sorry.
Is it more expansion to the studio? Or?
It's bigger, I believe. It was announced a while ago, so that's something it's not so bad for me to be able to say that. We're kind of moving more downtown, I think. So that facility will have a gym in it. But for now, just being able to just go for walks at least, I think has been helpful.
Yeah. Those studies that you did some studies of like use like different brushes. Are those from like your books?
Sorry, what was that? It was studies with different brushes?
Yeah, it was like I think it was like what was it? There were a bunch of like one of them was like a water study, like I had water and then it was like mountains.
Oh, and some of my older study images?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I at various times I've messed around with different brushes and stuff like that, but I really can't. I couldn't tell you what they were.
Oh no! I was just using that as like a landmark to like because like I just noticed one thing about them was that you use like different brushes, but like I was wondering.
I see. Yeah. Oh, like where those are?
Yeah.
Like, are those taken? Well, okay. So, in the lineup, in the image of like 4 mountain areas, where it has like that one's the one that's just like some water and some mountains, and it's kind of more vibrant green. Was just taken from some reference I found online, just random kind of vacation photos. But in this series of 4 images, they were taken from Jasper. Just photos that I took while I was out there. So yeah, I'm a mountain-aholic. It's tough being in Edmonton because it's a like 3.5 to 4 hour long drive to get out there. So you pretty much have to make a weekend of it, which is, I mean, that's great. That if you can do that. So we don't get out there super often. But when we do, it's great. There's so many amazing locations out there, and I try to, even though at this stage of life I can't do real big sit-down studies or plein air things, like it's kind of hard to do with kids. I at least will take photos of stuff that I would like to do studies of. Right.
So I'm kind of hogging you here, but do you so like when you do take pictures of stuff, do you ever like do you have like a specific time where you organize them all? Because like I found that like whenever I do that, like at this point I've probably got like a few hundred or more than that of like images where I'm like, oh, I want to study those at some point, but like at this point it's such a big pile that I can't really see. It's probably going to be like an entire day job just sorting them.
Sure. Well, I try to generally sort them by the location and generally the time. So if it's a trip out to Jasper and what month and what year. But that seems to be about all I need, because actually what I do a lot is I will, even if I don't do them directly as studies, I'll use them as either reference or just like photo bash material for images at work. So like a lot of Dragon Age imagery has been backgrounds that different textures and rocks and stuff like that I found in the Rockies that I really liked.
Yeah, because like you've got there's a piece of Dragon Age Inquisition concept art where like the people in the tavern, and like I noticed like the background's just and it's all like, it's a picture but just with line work over it.
Yeah. Yeah, effectively, exactly. That's right. Although that, I think, might have been a screenshot.
Oh, okay.
Because in some cases, it would be ready. Marvin Marvels asks, do I take a sketchbook to my mountain hikes? I do. It's just also so rare that I actually am able to break it out for longer than 5 minutes. But in that case, too, like right now, you do what you can. So it's like, if I see something cool, I'll try to take a rough sketch of it and maybe write down some notes of things that I might want to know later that a sketch is not going to capture.
I like friend Owl Design's question about
Yeah,
Tellurion.
Oh, sorry, did I miss that? Makes me feel better about my blobby thumbnails I make when draw. Thank you for calling out the question, by the way, when I draw stuff out. But you're right, that's a good way to tell if the design works. So working on Tellurion specifically, what are some of the biggest aha moments where you figured out ways to streamline the process or things that are just better? That is a good question. Well, I'm going to have to also think about how to answer that question without stealing from the visuals. Biggest aha moments. Well, dang, that's a really good question. Shouts out to Colin from Toronto, Canada, my dudes. Yes. I don't know. Biggest aha moments.
Oh, that's my friend Will.
Okay.
He joined your Discord around the same time I did, and he may be a little disappointed that he's not in the chat.
Oh, okay. Is it all filled up?
I think it is.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah. Sorry, buddy. So, I really want to answer this question because I feel like I should be able to.
Anything that happened in past drawings that doesn't really tell the story?
Like I know that there have definitely been images where looking back, I could say maybe that wasn't necessary. And well, okay, this image itself, I did talk about this, so maybe I'll use this as an example. Initial thumbnail here. Let me pull it up. So here's my scruffy thumbnails. 1 and 2. And so these were 2 moments that were going to go back to back. One where an arm was reached out from figure to figure to stop them, and then there would have been taking in the central focus of the image, just sort of watching it. But I realized that if I just put the arm link in here into this image, I don't need the first image, really.
I remember last stream you were talking about you're talking about how you figured out how to like merge 2 like important scenes. And is this what that was?
No, but this is a smaller version. That one is actually bigger. That'll be a bit later. That might be next year. We'll see. But this one's just a little. As often as possible, I've been trying to make sure that if I can put it into the image, I put it into the image. That I want as few cutaways as possible to get across what I want to get across. So every time I find an opportunity to, if one image is more about a gesture and another image is about a focal point, can I get the gesture and the focal point in the same image at the same time?
Right.
And so that's why we get the reaching out gesture here. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh yeah. I like how
for Friend Owl Design. We'll see here. Okay, just got to make sure I'm keeping track of all the bits. Do I have any tips for someone just starting to use thumbnails? Don't take them too seriously. They're helpful guides, but feel free to ignore them, start again, start from scratch, do something else entirely, whatever. They're meant to help, and if they're getting in the way or they're slowing you down, then just, yeah. I mean, even on the stream, there have been many cases where a thumbnail has just been totally abandoned.
When you have like a design and you want, like, if you've sketched it out on paper
Mhm.
and you want to translate it to digital, if it's quite detailed, do you paint directly on top of it, or do you just have it as reference on the side and then paint it from scratch to like try and like explore it more?
I guess it depends on what I'm really up for, because in a lot of cases, like at work, I do try to take opportunities to do real studies in the middle of doing actual production images. So if it's a chance to learn about, I'll use horse anatomy as an example. I'll try not to miss an opportunity like that. But sometimes that's just not realistic. An idea needs to be gotten across. There's no point taking too much time on it. And in those cases, like in some of those cases, I will definitely try to, if I'm trying to turn it into study, I'll try to break it down in a few different ways and rebuild it so that I feel like I have a solid understanding of what the actual thing is.
Yeah.
And I think I said in a recent stream, like, stylization is a big help for that. Like if you can take a reference material and stylize it, then you're making some really intentional choices about how to communicate it.
Like kind of like the critical part that where it actually sticks, it's like stays in your head.
Yeah, exactly. From the chat, that's a good point. That's especially helpful for the comic making process too when you think about it. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, did I cut someone off? I think
No. I think that was just a chat. But
okay.
if you were about to cut someone off, now is their time to speak. Go. No, you're just going crazy.
I guess not.
Thanks, Tom Alberter. That sounds like how we talk here in Alberta. Have good. Thanks for jumping in.
See ya, Tom.
Right hand. Okay, next.
The tension on that hand grabbing that shoulder, though. The tension of the hand grabbing the shoulder. Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It's like a swift reaction.
Yeah.
But also helps with her body language. It's just so sudden, like, look.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
Stop right
like,
there.
because like the hair, because like the motion of the hair, it looks like she's just like, it shows that like she's still moving while she's.
Good.
Yeah. How
But it's
do
also
you-
like her head turn.
Yeah.
How do you manage character interaction in general? How do you how do you select how you're going to portray the interaction of both characters in these kind of situations?
Well, to select it, I would say there's a lot of it is just playing out the movie of Tellurion in my head, watching like, what do I want? What is this moment? What's the point of it? What's it getting across? So there's the figuring out why it's happening. But when it comes to this, I mean, partly the way my process, like in illustrating my process on these videos, it's a really, I guess for lack of a better term, workman approach to it. I know what I want to convey. I know what the moment is in the story, and it's just like, okay, I do the really, each step by step line of action, and then the skeleton and all that. And I think that helps to keep it a little bit easier to manage, because as long as the energy of the pose is working, then I can move on to the next step. And if that's working, then I can get a little bit more of the skeleton in place. And if that's working, then I can do the muscles. And if that's working, then I can do, that helps keep it all kind of squared away for me. So even when characters are interacting, I can think about them very, very primitively first, and then kind of increase the resolution. Oh, Laser Bang is from France. I forgot, man. Painfully early, 7 a.m. Good morning, Laser Bang Bang. Marmaris, it's been constant struggle to work Matt's streams into my schedule here in Poland too. Oh man. Well, hey, I'm actually coming to Poland, so I don't know if I'll be able to do a stream from there, but we'll see. Do I have any book artist recommendations for some anatomy study? I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, any art books you could recommend, like people could look at or get inspired from?
Oh man, I mean, I have my own collection. Well, here, actually, let me play show and tell. One sec. Actually, sorry. Walking the 6 feet with crutches and holding books might not actually work. I will just say
Maybe next time.
maybe next time. Yeah,
That's good
I
thinking
should.
ahead.
I should be back. I should be back in action by next week. But like, How to Train Your Dragon, both 1 and 2, are incredible art books. They're just stunning pieces of work.
Kung Fu Panda.
Yes,
There are books
yeah.
for that as well.
Yeah.
I
You-
actually
oh,
have
you-
the Inquisition art book.
Oh, nice.
Same goes with me. Oh, the Big Hero 6. Oh, I love those art
Oh,
books.
yeah,
Especially when
yeah.
they
That
transform,
one's good.
like the idea of combining two worlds together and making a totally new world.
Oh, Marmaris, you bought tickets in Poland. All right, that's awesome.
One book I
General
like.
term-
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, just quick that one book I have that actually is inspiring for my style, and I think it works with character design. It's titled Realms, and it's a collection of Tony DiCelli.
Mm,
And he's like a big like D&D artist.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think he also did Spiderway Chronicle.
yep.
Oh,
Yeah. So like that's another artist that,
Yeah.
like, especially
Well-
with characters in fantasy style drawing. Realms. REALMS.
I have this one art book. I think it's out of pen. Okami. Oh, the watercolors and design of that game. I
Nice.
love it.
Yeah, that's got a really interesting style.
Yeah, I love looking at.
I feel like for character design in general, the ones that have the most information nowadays for the character design itself are the three newest: Big Hero 6, Tangled, and Frozen. The 3 books are full with information, whereas before we haven't really gotten much of notes from the character designers
Mm-hmm.
in production before, and suddenly these 3 books have a lot of simplification. In Big Hero 6, actually, there is a reference on how to study anatomy and how to adapt it into a more stylized style for the movie, which
Neat.
is super interesting.
That's cool.
Moana has similar stuff in it as well.
Moana as well,
I
yeah.
got that book recently.
Yeah, Disney's like really trying to get their art books out. So like maybe they want to inspire or just like cater to the fans, especially
Mhm.
cosplayers want to know the whole what the body looked like and shape.
I think it has to do with the fact that before the books lacking so much information weren't really cared for.
Mm-hmm.
The sales weren't really good, and they needed to have an excuse for selling them better and giving information to students, especially new students, and for people who would really enjoy knowing about the production of the movies. It would just work.
Mm-hmm.
It felt mostly like that with the books.
Absolutely. Well, how inspiring they end up being and how foundational. Because I was just thinking, like the art of Atlantis is amazing for the Magnolia stuff.
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
what was there was another one that was.
There is a new one also from the animation industry, which is Rise of the Guardians, which is based on the books from the author adapted the books into a movie, and the art book for the movie is incredible.
Do you
It's
have
just
it?
incredible. It's one of those things that combines graphic design with character design and
Mhm.
environmental design, because they had to create the world for 6 different characters, and how each of them view the world, and how this point of view reflected on each other. And it's very interesting because they managed to also do this spread of information into the book in the end. So
Mm.
it's a really good source of information.
That's awesome.
Even the Last Airbender, the Last Airbender, yeah, the Avatar, the Last Airbender, they have like whole books and whole sections of it explaining the process, and even
that's a really good art book too.
in a section of them practicing kung fu. Like each animator who's focused on a certain tribe, they've done kung fu. And they show that process. Yeah, pretty cool. And really good gesture lines. Anybody want to get idea of gesture drawing pretty well.
That's cool. Thank you, by the way, Friendel, for that shout out for the Inquisition book. That's that was really fun to put together. Sorry?
Sorry, I got spoiled by an art book. Like, there was like a narrative spoiler in the Deus Ex. The art of Deus Ex, there was like one character, and it was like, here's the character, here's what we were going for. By the way, they work for the Illuminati.
Oh, damn! It's like reading the back of the book before reading the beginning.
Yeah, it was like, in the game, there's like a pocket secretary you can find, and these basically like, they're essentially mobile phones, but like, you find it on like, just lying around like an enemy base, and like, it's like, it's really cryptic, it's got like the initials of the character, and I don't want to make any spoilers, but in case there's any Deus Ex fans in this chat, but it's like their name is kind of like a bird name, so like the name of like the cover name on the Pocket Secretary is like the Latin name of that bird, and it's like really intricately covered up, and the art book's like, yeah, this is he works for Illuminati. In the game, it's like does he not, you know?
It's kind of like when they did on Dead Space, when you read the journal and the first letter of each of the journal tells you that
what happens in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
except yeah, but like in that case, it's like the veil is being withheld, and it's not being just stripped away unceremoniously, like in like a paragraph. I don't. Yeah.
Actually, the first Dead Space was a really, really good example of the game. The game had really, really good environmental storytelling, but a kind of a cool thing about it was, and I'm talking specifically about the first one, was there was an animated film made for the first game that was basically a prequel, but there were things you find in the game that sort of lead you directly to things that the animated film tells you. But it was just kind of cool how they lay the seeds for sort of story points that are both in the animated film and the game, but they're some are in the animated film, some are in the game, but they're not in both. And it's just kind of a cool way. What's the word I'm looking for? It's like cross media or something. It was just a really, really good way to enrich both stories by having certain plot points in the animated film, certain points in the game, and then some that cross over. I was just like, damn, this is good. I think they talked about some of that stuff in the Dead Space art book as well.
I think they, I don't know if this is true, like the dev team over the guidance, I don't know if this is the same here, maybe I misheard it. It was like, you know, The Thing, and they remade The Thing and made a prequel sequel to it? Like, sort of, like, they kind of got that kind of idea to do something similar to that? I don't know. To, like, leaving hints behind in The Thing from Stephen King, the movie?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but never mind, sorry.
That's all good.
But yeah, rest in peace, Visceral.
Oh yeah, shit. That's true. Yeah, that kind of sucks. I won't spoil anything for people that haven't played the third one, but I don't really know where they could take that story after where they left it in the third game. Like it's kind of a closed ending at that point. For anybody who played that DLC.
I think that it's a really good habit to get into. I don't know, like a good thing to do. The stories is like leave them open-ended, like let's say Star Wars Rebels. I'm not sure if anyone's watched that, but it's like it just that's just the most specific example that comes to mind. It just like it's like a suit. It's like it could just continue. It's like it's closure, but it's like there's an obvious leaping off point that like.
Matt, when you flipped your canvas like that, what specifically were you looking for? Just out of curiosity.
Double checking balance. I was making sure that I was happy with how all the shapes were actually interacting still. Like there wasn't too much of a okay, now given the recent conversation, it feels weird to use this, but there wasn't a conversational dead space or a compositional dead space in there, or like I was leaving too much blank. I'm actually kind of happy with how much room is being left. So,
was that an intentional or an unintentional dead space pun?
it was unintentional. I could have steered away from it, but I chose not to.
Nice.
Are you using the golden ratio too to draw to the statue of it?
Not always, and not super intentionally. I get the impression, honestly, that the golden ratio thing tends to be used by instinct a lot. And that as you're kind of like trying to find a good looking image, it's like balance. I just keep associating it with balancing stones. Like suddenly it just works. And when it does, it tends to be at 1 to 1.618. Oh, hey, here's a first. Photoshop is crashing on me.
Oh.
Did you save it?
Oh no.
Let's find out. A little bit of drama in the stream
Thanks.
now.
It's probably oh, if you've got like if it's going to be on YouTube.
I mean, even if it go on YouTube, all the work, like all those hours of our work,
I could probably take a screenshot of my.
everything again.
Well, you
Here we go. Here we go. Moment of truth. Loading.
That's really
Moment
heartbreaking.
of silence.
I know Twitch is delayed too, so you guys can't see what I'm seeing.
At least
Give it
Discord
a
is.
couple of seconds to kick in the.
It's
the
fine.
recovery
It's
mode.
fine.
it's bad.
You have like a memorial of the Tellurion
There we go.
131.
Thankfully, it still was just mirrored, and I didn't add the little color bits, but that is really not that important. Well, relax. Stop.
Screenshot and trace to save a life. That friend that will design wrote that.
Exactly. It's just exactly. It's just the pencil there. Anyway, it's fine.
Oh, if anybody wants to know more about this, there is a YouTube channel called Game of Docutra or something. Like it's like game and document together and talk to all the formal Visceral members, their experience in Dead Space, what they're doing
Ooh.
afterwards. I think, yeah. I'll put that link.
Maybe throw up a link to that. That sounds really interesting.
So this is like after the Visceral closed.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. But they have a bunch of documents from people who are on Visual Studios to a bunch of. It's all Patreon funded, but I love watching their videos of how they did it, and you're talking to heads, and it has like a bunch of information up there of the studios and their process method. I'm just wondering if BioWare might go up there to see what their like Mass Effect.
Oh boy.
Well, I know that after it took place, there was a lot of reaching out. Because you realize it's nobody's thrilled by any studio closing, and I know that it's such a small industry that you probably, once you're in it, you probably know people who work just about everywhere, or you will shortly. But I don't know. Sorry, maybe I missed the thrust of your question. Were you saying like that they'll do like an interview with BioWare people, or just like, or were you talking about Visceral specifically?
No, I was like hoping because this YouTube channel, they go to these studios, and I like hope that one day they might go to your guys' studio.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
interview you guys
Yeah.
and the struggles and the rumors and whatnot what you guys have
Right.
went through, and I'm like, and it's like, ooh, what kind of tidbits we do, because all we hear as the customers and audience is we just hear rumors and speculations of what you guys do. And sometimes most of those speculation rumors are pretty negative, and it's like, oh, BioWare isn't like that. And like, I feel heart to heart, you guys aren't like that at all.
It is still kind of amazing to me, the sort of stuff, like when I see rumors flying around, that's just like, it just makes you wonder, like, how in the freaking world did somebody come up with that?
Where do people find the time?
It can be just utterly baffling sometimes. I mean, it's like I was saying even earlier. I mean, the one thing that I hear sometimes is I don't know, just when some people when some people hear about different people leaving the studio, there can be kind of a freak out, and thinking like, oh, that's the end. But I mean, I work regularly with guys like Luke Christianson, who, like I was telling the story earlier, are basically, they've been here since like they were on day one of Baldur's Gate. You know, so it just seems kind of like, okay, I guess you can freak out if you want, but I don't know. I look around, I walk down the halls every day, and I see, you know, people who've been around forever, and I'm still, like I said, I'm still a greenhorn. I'm at 14 years. I'm still a baby compared to a lot of the people that I see on a regular basis. So and you just get, it's interesting. There's just it's not my area. The whole PR thing and how it all relates, I wouldn't even bother to wade into that. I just find it all kind of fascinating.
Well, it doesn't really seem like there's much of a point if you're on the outside and you have no real connection to the inside to even speculate. Like, unless you have the context, then you don't have the whole story no matter what. Yeah. Well, and honestly, even given the whole story, sometimes, I mean, this is not a BioWare specific example. This is something else. Years ago, back when people were much more upset about DLC content, they got it. The game overall, people got it into their heads that the DLC content was stuff that came from the real game that people strategically removed and withheld in order to release later for profit. Oh, this was the on-disc DLC thing. I did remember hearing about that, although I was so young that I just didn't care. I was just like, Mass Effect 3, holy shit!
Right.
Freaking out because it was awesome.
Well, and I think BioWare's, we've heard it too, because we released DLC at various points. Everybody who made DLC heard it, but some people got it into their heads. It was this sort of meme that this is what DLC is. It's legit game material that is made and finished, but that we have stripped out and are reselling to make more money. And I don't doubt that there's probably a couple studios that were unscrupulous enough that they actually attempted that. That probably did happen. But having been involved in the development process intimately, like someone actually, I don't know what studio they were from or who released this, but they released an explicit, detailed and like explanation for why DLC is done, why it helps. Like the idea that, at a certain point the game can't be developed any further because it has to go to cert, but that means that you have an entire game development team just sitting there on their hands with nothing to do for a couple months in some cases. So what you could do is just have them make more of the game that they're now very, very, very good at making, and then release. And then by the time you're done making a smaller package of that, it can be ready by the time your big game has gone through certification. So your choice would be either send that team off to another project where they have to learn everything from scratch, and you don't know if that other project is ready for them, or fire all of them, or have them work on DLC. And it just seemed pretty obvious and easy. And so someone articulated that, showed them the schedules. They showed them, these are some of our schedules, and this is how it all works, and this is the breakdown. Nope, bullshit. That's lies.
Wow.
It's all lies. It's like, okay, all right. You know, I think everybody just kind of realized there's just no point trying
It
to.
sounds like they kind of walked into it looking for a negative answer.
Possibly.
Just kept looking for that answer they wanted.
Possibly.
I'm wondering about the loot boxes then. Is that sort of a similar situation, or that's like totally different?
Well, that I don't know. You know, it's a whole new world. It's stuff that is kind of, you know, I'm very thankful that often I get to just be an artist. I don't need to. There are some things that I don't need to worry about. And I'd say that's, yeah. They'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, I just realized my navigator window has been
Shut off?
disappeared by OBS.
Oh, that happens.
Yep. Let me see if I can pull it back up and see if it remembers what size it's supposed to be. It doesn't.
Oh, I just remembered something. Matt,
Mm-hmm.
there was an update on OBS
Mm-hmm.
a little bit ago, and it's manual update because somebody turned off in the last update the switch to have the auto update.
Okay.
Sweet.
Just a tiny thing. I remember.
Yeah. Friend Owl says, yeah, no shade, but please tell that to Bungo who forgot what DLC is. Extremely lucky. It's also mobile games, so that's my shade for the day. Some mobile games do have really nice art. DLC is dead. Changed my mind. Well, I mean, honestly, like, the model is shifting. Just discovered Battle Chasers in the Banner Saga. Great art direction. Amen. So
Matt is a beast.
he really is. Yeah, always will be. I have now reached the point where I can't move any further on my pencils, and I am too tired to begin inking. I need to go to bed. So
What time is it over there?
it is 11:15, which is
Whoa.
dad o'clock for bed.
It's 1:30 in the morning here.
Whew. Yeah.
Two almost 30.
I tremendous respect for the people who are staying up at crazy hours to take part in this. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me while I work.
No problemo.
No,
Thank
we
you for doing
appreciate
these
you.
streams and answering
We appreciate it too, yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean-
it's cool to answer to have all these questions and to just hear. The thing that I really like about hanging out with artists, anytime I've been fortunate enough to go to like art conferences or even just little art hangouts, is all artists get talking, and we pretty much always start talking about the exact same kind of stuff. Like either the awesome art we like, or all the ways that we know art should be done well that it isn't right now, but that, damn it, it could just be done so well. And it's just it's a blast. So I am going to tomorrow post up the next shot, which again for the streamers, because you came in and you were hanging out with me, this is it. So this will be the shot that goes up tomorrow.
Sweet.
Nice.
And yeah, thanks again. It's funny. I can tell why some streamers get really awkward and don't exactly know how to end things, and they have to come up with some really obvious outro. So I am just going to say good night.